Have you ever wondered how far some people are willing to go in the name of science? Well, the answer is genuinely horrifying. In this video, we'll be exploring the top 5 most horrific Nazi experiments, examining the scientific methods behind them and the human cost they exacted. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button and give us a like if you want to see more content like this. Let's dive in. Number 5. High-altitude experiments. The Nazis were obsessed with understanding the effects of high altitude on the human body, believing that it would be helpful in their military endeavors. To conduct these experiments, they built a decompression chamber where prisoners were subjected to simulated high-altitude conditions. The prisoners were placed in the section, and the air pressure was gradually lowered to simulate the conditions at high altitudes. The purpose of these experiments was to observe the physiological and psychological effects of low atmospheric pressure on the human body. The prisoners subjected to these experiments experienced excruciating pain, seizures, and even death. Many of them were left permanently disabled, and some were left with severe brain damage. The experiments were carried out by a team of scientists trying to understand the limits of human endurance in extreme conditions, but their methods were cruel. The victims were often selected at random, and they were not given the option to refuse. Number 4. Chemical warfare experiments. The Nazis conducted extensive research into chemical warfare, testing the effectiveness of various gases and poisons on human subjects. They wanted to develop weapons that could incapacitate or kill large numbers of people, and they were willing to do whatever it took to achieve their goals. The experiments involved exposing prisoners to toxic gases such as mustard gas, phosgene, and chlorine. The purpose of these experiments was to determine the most effective chemical agents to use in battle. The victims of these experiments experienced unbearable pain, difficulty breathing, and often death. Some were used as test subjects for new gas masks, which provided little protection against the lethal gases. The Nazis also tested the effects of various poisons, such as cyanide and strychnine, on human subjects. These experiments were carried out by a team of scientists trying to find new and more effective ways to wage war, but their methods were brutal and inhumane. Number 3. Sterilization experiments. The Nazis were obsessed with creating a master race, and one of the ways they attempted to do this was by sterilizing individuals they deemed genetically inferior. They believed that by preventing these individuals from reproducing, they could avoid the pollution of the Aryan race. The sterilization experiments were carried out on both men and women, and they involved a variety of methods, including X-rays and injections of toxic substances. The victims of these experiments often experienced severe pain, infection, and even death. Many were permanently disabled, unable to have children or lead everyday lives. The Nazis used these experiments to further their belief in eugenics, the idea that certain races or groups of people were superior to others. Their methods were unethical and cruel, and the victims were often selected based on arbitrary criteria such as physical appearance or family history. Number 2. Freezing experiments. The Nazis conducted a series of freezing experiments to test the limits of human endurance in extremely cold conditions. The experiments involved placing prisoners in cold water or leaving them outside in freezing temperatures for extended periods. The purpose of these experiments was to observe the physiological and psychological effects of extreme cold on the human body. The victims of these experiments experienced hypothermia, frostbite, and often death. Some were used as test subjects for new methods of rewarming, which were often ineffective and led to even more suffering. The scientists involved in these experiments recorded their observations and took notes on the physical and psychological effects of freezing on the human body. Number 1. Medical experiments. The most horrific Nazi experiments involved medical procedures performed on concentration camp prisoners without anesthesia or proper sterilization. The experiments included surgeries, bone and muscle transplantation, and amputations. Many subjects died due to the procedures, and those who survived were often disfigured and disabled. The purpose of these experiments was to advance medical knowledge and technology, but the methods used were brutal and inhumane. Dr. Joseph Mengele led one of the most notorious medical experiments conducted by the Nazis at Auschwitz. He was known as the Angel of Death for his cruel and sadistic experiments on prisoners. He conducted experiments on twins, attempting to create identical twins through various means, including injecting chemicals into pregnant women and sewing twins together. Many of the victims of these experiments suffered excruciating pain and often died as a result. The medical experiments conducted by the Nazis violated all principles of medical ethics and human rights. The victims were often chosen at random, and they were not given the option to refuse. A desire for knowledge and advancement drove the scientists involved in these experiments, but they were willing to sacrifice the lives and well-being of their subjects to achieve their goals. The experiments conducted by the Nazis were a stark violation of human rights and scientific ethics. The atrocities committed serve as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked scientific inquiry and the importance of ethical guidelines. We must continue to study and remember these atrocities, never to repeat them. As we progress, we must always consider the human cost of scientific progress and strive to conduct research ethically and responsibly. What do you think about the atrocities committed during the Nazi scientific experiments? The inhumane methods they used in the name of scientific advancement serve as a stark reminder of the importance of ethical guidelines in research. We must never forget the human cost of scientific progress and always strive to conduct research ethically and responsibly. Thank you for watching. If you found this content informative, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Remember to give us a like and comment below with your thoughts on this topic. Your support and feedback are greatly appreciated.